Then on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 1 matchup between the Boise State Broncos and the Oregon State Beavers. Huge matchup for both these teams as we head into Week 1. And both teams were decent in the 2021 season, getting up to 7 wins. But as we head into 2022, both teams once again show potential. So a pretty crucial matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 1. We'll be over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Games will be on Saturday, September 3rd in Corvallis. So the Beavers are the home team for this matchup, and your kickoff is 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. That would be 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Spread's going Oregon State here by 2.5. So Beavers are slightly favored in this matchup, and honestly, as expected, this is going to be a pretty close matchup. I do think both teams are very, very similar skill-wise. If you look at last season, both teams were fairly decent. We'll get into that more in a second, but 7 wins for both these teams last season, and both teams returned quite a bit of talent. One of these teams could be a surprise team this season, I do think, honestly. Oregon State could turn out to be a dark horse contender in the Pac-12, and Boise State could be, once again, a pretty relevant team, maybe ranked for a few weeks this season. It starts here too. This is where you set the tone for the season, is in Week 1, and a huge win right off the bat for one of these teams would be huge. Over-under is 57. FPI is going Boise State 50.2%. So that's about as close as you can get on the FPI there. It's barely going with the Broncos. Series history, Oregon State leads at 5-4. They won the last matchup, which was in 2016. So it's been a few years since we last saw these two teams play each other. Here's a stat comparison for this matchup. Looking at your 2021 stats, these are out of all 130 FBS teams. Boise State 52nd in points per game. They were 11th in points allowed. So, defensively, this team was statistically a top 11 team in the nation. 34th in pass yards a game, 97th in rush yards. So the passing game, not bad for this team last year. And for yards allowed, passing defense was pretty good, 20th in the nation and 67th in rush yards allowed. As for Oregon State, 44th in points per game, 70th in points allowed. They were 73rd in pass yards a game, 17th in rush yards. So rushing offense was very good for the Beavers last year in the top 20 there. Then for yards allowed, 101st in passing, which is not very good, but they were 45th in rushing defense last season. Stat comparison for this matchup, once again, both teams were 7-win teams last year. Boise State at 7-5, Oregon State at 7-6. And, if you look at Oregon State last year, you could say the Beavers, this team had very low expectations going into 2021. Many outlets and analysts and websites were predicting them to only get 4 to 5 wins max going into last season. So for them to get up to 7 and caused some noise in the Pac-12 for a while there, that is definitely a great sign for the future for Oregon State here. They returned their quarterback, Chance Nolan, who does show some potential. Once again, both teams are pretty similar here because both teams have got quarterbacks who definitely show potential. Boise State's got Hank Beckmeyer, who definitely he's shown potential in the past, and he's not a terrible quarterback. Statistically, he put up over 3,000 yards last season, 20 touchdowns, 8 picks. 63% completion rate as well. So those are it was his best season for sure to date with the Broncos in 2021. So if he improves, if Chance Nolan also improves for Oregon State, both teams could be decent this season. And both teams also have got more experience than they did, you could say, in the 2021 season, which is obviously a huge factor. So Boise State likely to improve. Honestly, Oregon State likely to improve as well. And once again, I'll state once again how crucial of a matchup this is for both these teams here. This is, for whoever wins this game, that is a quality win right off the bat. And for Oregon State to be at home, that does help them here. But Boise State, too, if you look at their schedule last season, they performed pretty well on the road. This is a team that went to Colorado State, beat them by 9. They beat Fresno State, who was ranked 23rd in the nation at the time, 40-14 on the road. They beat Utah State on the road 27-3 earlier in the season. So, this team performed pretty well on the road, and they also played very close games to some really good football teams too. So, this team you could consider to be potentially better than their record showed last season. They lost by 5 to UCF, lost by 1 to Oklahoma State. They kept it super close against Oklahoma State. Lost to Nevada by 10, lost to Air Force by 7, lost to San Diego State by 11. So, this team, they kept it close. They didn't have a huge blowout loss at any point. 7-5 was the record in the end, and in the end, they didn't even play a bowl game because it got canceled. But this team, they were not bad last season. They were not a bad team last season. They took a couple of close losses there. Oregon State, they were better than expected last season for sure. Once again, Chance Nolan and Pac-12 dark horse in 2022. I think Oregon State very well could be, but it starts here in this matchup. Let's get to the prediction here for Boise State and Oregon State. The big matchup coming up here in week 1 for both these teams. It's going to be Boise State 31-28. I'm going with the Broncos to win this matchup. I think Boise State in the end, as I mentioned before, they performed pretty well on the road last season. And once again, I think this team is slightly better than the record showed. I mean, the record showed 7-5 last year, obviously, but this team definitely, I mean, they took a few close losses. And I mean, with the talent they're returning, they're a more experienced team, and I would say a better team going into this season. So I mean, this is as close as it gets, really. I'm going 51% towards Boise State, almost a coin toss here. I mean, Oregon State could definitely take control of this game and end up winning it. I mean, that's very much a possibility, depending on how Chance Nolan does and how this offense does. But in the end, I'm going Boise State to pull a slight upset here, 31-28. Over under 57. I'll take the over for this matchup, and Boise State to cover the spread in the end. So really an interesting matchup too. I mean, of course, this game is a pretty late one on Saturday for most people, especially East Coast. It's a 10:30 kickoff, but turns out this could be one of the better matchups of the day. You got two pretty evenly skilled teams, and a pretty crucial matchup for both these teams as well. Honestly, one of these teams could, once again, be pretty good this season, and it starts out with this matchup. But anyway, that said, appreciate you guys watching as always. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll catch you on the next one.